It's time to haul some books. Hi, welcome back to my channel, Manga Hoarder. My name is Laura, and today I'm going to do a bit of a haul video. This includes more than just manga. It's the end of December haul, basically, so it does include things that I would have gotten for Christmas. I was going to combine this with my birthday haul because it happens like just a couple of days into January, and I wanted to put them together, but I realize now that I have quite a bit of stuff already to talk to you about. I am expecting quite a bit of stuff in the mail in January as well, so I'm going to just save it for January to talk about January stuff. So we're just going to do the end of December and just finally finish off 2018 once and for all, and move forward. So this is everything that I ended up getting over just sort of the last few days here in December. So let's start off this haul with Rigveda. This is volume 3 by Clamp, and it is the final volume in a fairly sizable omnibus series. And this is a title that I picked up because Bizarre Individual and Lindsay Tutt were doing a read-along in January, and so I wanted to make sure I had the entire series. I was going to pick this up eventually, but I decided that I might as well finish off the series and see if I could actually finish reading it completely in January. At this point, and today is I think the 6th, I haven't actually started reading it yet, but hopefully by the time I have this posted, I should be done reading this. So I hope it's good. It definitely is beautiful, but you know, when an artist works on a first work, even though they're a group working together, first works are always a little bit kind of rough. So I am very curious about what this story is. I have read the first volume of this before. I found it kind of dense and, like I said, quite rough. But I am hoping to finish reading this in January. To accompany Rigveda by Clamp, I also picked up the Rigveda. This is translated by Wendy Doniger, and you can see it's the Penguin edition. I am definitely not prejudiced about Penguin editions. I like to pick them up whenever I feel like it. They're always sort of a good read. I don't know much about this. I know that it's ancient Sanskrit. I know that it's Hindu sacred text. I believe it's poetic, and I think that it is the oldest of the 4 Vedas. I don't know too much about the Vedas. So hopefully this will be an interesting learning experience, and hopefully that it will really pair well with reading Rigveda. You know, I really do like to read prose or other works, the accompanying works, the works that manga are inspired from while I read the manga, or, you know, listen to the music that inspired it or whatever. I just feel like it really enhances the reading experience. So I may not finish reading this in January, but I certainly will read selections of it, and I am looking forward to doing that. I did get 2 books which I did not buy and were not a Christmas gift. I actually won them off of Stacks on Stacks channel. She's a booktuber and was hosting a readathon a couple of months ago, and so I ended up winning a gift certificate or whatever to Book Depository, and basically I ended up picking 2 titles, and so I got The Guest Cat by Takashi Hiraide. It sounds just like a very sweet novel, but it's also very short, and I also ended up picking up Convenience Store Woman by Sayaka Murata. This is a pretty new release, and I have been quite interested in it. I have a funny feeling it's going to be very relatable, and so I am very curious about it, but again, it's a very short novel, so I definitely will want to read these throughout the year, and I'm glad to be adding a little bit to my Japanese prose fiction collection, because I have surprisingly read very, very few. I think at the end of the year, when I was really looking at my budget, I sort of started to panic a little bit. And so I did end up making a couple of silly purchases of things that were nearly out of print, and I knew that at least in a year from now they would be completely unavailable. So I did buy a handful of little things here at the end of the month, or at the end of the year, knowing that going forward that I wasn't going to be able to buy them. So I ended up picking up Comics vs. Art by Bart Needy. I have actually read a good portion of this. I had borrowed it from the library, and I was absolutely in love with this book. It just talks about kind of the history of comics, the history of comics as art, and how we define comics, at least that's as far as I got. I'm really very curious about reading further, and Bart Needy, as it turns out, is a professor at one of the colleges or universities here in my city, so that's kind of interesting, and I like that local connection. It's always a very nice thing, so I am very interested in reading this. I'm very happy to have this in my collection. The next title I picked up because I saw that Sylvia from Wish Fulfillment was actually going to be reading this for January, and I thought it was absolutely hilarious that she was going to have to read it. She was doing a project where she was reading her subscribers or her online friends' favorite books in their astrological sign, and so I gave her some to read for January because I'm a Capricorn. But one of the titles she was reading was Battle Royale by Koushin Takami. It's a pretty big book, and it's been something that I've always meant to read and thought that would be really fun to read, and that just sort of reminded me, hey, like, yeah, I want to read this. I am planning, of course, reading a bit more prose and wanting to collect a few more Japanese authors, and so I thought that this would be appropriate for my collection, and I thought it was quite funny that she was going to have to read that because I did not think that that was a title for her, but I do have a feeling this is a title for me though, so I am looking forward to reading this whenever I get around to it. The biggest thing that I ended up getting for Christmas, my father gave to me, almost 1,200 pages, The Tale of Genji by Murasaki Shikibu. I have read an abridged version of this. It's huge. It's huge. There are a few illustrations in it, but it is just wall-to-wall text. So it is going to take some time. I have a funny feeling I probably should have started this, you know, January 1st and put little flags in it so I knew how much I had to read every month, but yeah, I already feel behind. There's no way I'm going to get this finished in the year. But I am very much interested in reading this. I know that it is a massive influence in Japanese art and culture, and I really do want to read this full unabridged version, and I have heard very good things about this particular translation by Royale Tyler. So I definitely want to get to this at some point. If I ever see anyone do a read-along on BookTube for Tale of Genji, I probably will try to join in. Probably. He also ended up giving me a history of Japanese art from prehistory to the Taisho period. This is by Noritake Tsuda. It is a pretty decent size, but it's actually getting to be a little bit of an old book now. I did ask for this book. It's from 2009. Not that, you know, you need to have a very up-to-date art history book. You know, history exists and, you know, we can add to history, but we don't take away from history, if you know what I mean. So it doesn't matter so much that it's that old, but the fact that there are very few options for art history from Japan in English, and it's really kind of disappointing for someone who really does want to explore this a lot more than I have. I did study art history at university, and Japanese art was really very limited my options. There was one course that I took that was Southeast Asia, and I think there was just like a mention of Japanese art in that, and that was my entire education of Japanese art. So everything that I've learned about Japanese art I've had to do on my own, and so unfortunately there just isn't a lot of options for someone who wants to do that. So I haven't read this one fully. I did actually start reading it right on Christmas, a couple of chapters. It is a little bit of a dry read. It definitely flies through my favorite archaic period of art. Doesn't even barely mention Haniwa except for in like a sentence, which is like one of my favorite artistic archaic developments. Yeah, so I need more of this, and I'm very happy to have it. It certainly informs my reading of manga. Maybe not interesting to just about anybody else on this channel though, I suspect. The next thing, he also was from my dad, Citizen 13660 by Mine Okubo. This is a title that I'd ask him to buy. It is one of the titles in the 1001 Comics to Read Before You Die book that I've been really interested in reading. I have actually checked this out once before from the library and I never got very far into it. It's not actually a hard read. It's essentially one-panel comics with a little text description. It is a wartime comic. It's a story of a Japanese person during the World War II in America, when the Japanese people were relocated, incarcerated, or put into protective custody during the war. Basically, these horrible camps in horrible situations, and just kind of left there, not treated well. You know, even though they were American citizens, they were treated horribly. Same is true for Canada, but this one in particular is about American camps. And Canadian and American treatment of Japanese prisoners, or, you know, Canadian Japanese and American Japanese prisoners during World War II were quite a bit different. I would say that the camps were probably quite similar, but the end result was probably a bit different, and I think Canada came out lesser in the end. So this is a really tough topic in North American history, and it's one that I feel like it seems to be fairly forgotten, but really significant, important, and I'm really interested in reading this. The next couple are from my sister, so she got me Yokai Stories by Zach Davison and illustrated by Eleonora D'Onofrio. I'm not sure how to pronounce that last name. And this sort of has a look, it's quite short, sort of has a look of a children's picture book, only it has a ton of text in it, like huge wall-to-wall text. But it is illustrated really cutely. I do really like these little illustrations, and they seem to be stories about yokai, which are Japanese ghosts and monsters. So it should be fun. I'm assuming these are going to be like the most popular, well-known yokai. You know, like there was a kappa here. Tengu, tanuki. Yeah, so I think a lot of the ones that most people who know anything about Japanese culture, or just read manga and just happen to absorb these words, will recognize. So it should be cute. Zach Davison also is a translator. He works on a lot of classic manga, mostly Shigeru Mizuki and Leiji Matsumoto. And I like his work, so I'm happy to add this to the collection. I'm interested in reading these cute stories. She also got me a Japanese manga. This is Bare Ryus. This is by Erika Sakurazawa. As you know, she and I got to go and see her talk in our city, and she talked quite a bit about this one. I think this is a non-fiction title, or essay manga as she called it, about Russian ballet, which would be the Ryus. And it looks quite good. You can see the interior there. I'm having a feeling that this is going to be creaky. It's going to have too much kanji in it for me to read at my current level, but I was really happy to have it. It's a really attractive, beautiful manga, so I'm really happy to have this in our collection, and maybe one day I'll even get to read it. Maybe one day it'll get translated. Ballet manga just seems to be incredibly prevalent and incredibly under-translated, so, you know, I think I only can think of Swan? Are there others in English? I can't even think of any at the moment. And there's tons. There's tons. So we should get some more of these. That would be really nice. I would appreciate that. The next set of books I'm going to show you, they're ones that I bought, and I'm very excited to have found them because I've been looking for them for quite a while, and I knew that they existed in English. It was just very difficult to find because they are not distributed in North America, and that is Megane Collection, the Bespectacled, why is that word hard to say? The Bespectacled Gentleman Anthology by Shin Kawamaru. So this is basically a selection of very short stories, you know, just a couple of pages long. There are definitely at least 8 on the back. It looks like there's at least 8 stories in this very short volume of stories, and they're basically about boys who wear glasses and the girls who they fall in love with. But it's mostly about boys in glasses, which is why it's called the Megane Collection. So they are all about glasses wearing boys, so that is sort of a kind of stereotypical shoujo reader's fetish, and it works for this series. It works really well. These also tend to have frequent age gap romance, which I really like in these series, which is why I was looking for this, because I knew that age gap romance is a hard one to sell to North America. This one in particular is one that I like a lot. I like it a lot. It's all the best bits of a shoujo manga in a very, very compact, super speed story. So it's just a really enjoyable, not very highbrow, not the best stories, but just really enjoyable reads. So I ended up getting Volume 1, Volume 2, Volume 3, Volume 4, Volume 5, and another one which is Megane Sensei and Kiss. I ended up buying these on Kinokuniya Singapore, and I wasn't able to find these on any other website. I looked in multiple languages, I looked in, multiple countries, and I could find it on websites, but nobody would ship to North America except for Kinokuniya Singapore. So if you are interested, you should definitely check out their website. It is a little expensive to ship, certainly, and the books are a reasonable price, but because they're sending it so far, it is a little expensive, but they came in a really good amount of time, just a couple of weeks, and they were shipped well, and I was really happy with that, because this is something I never thought that I was going to be able to get my hands on. They do have a couple of other series. It certainly is not a huge selection that they have. These are all published by Shogakukan Asia. They don't have a huge collection. A lot of the titles that they do have published in English for Shogakukan Asia are ones that are already published in English by Viz. So like, I definitely saw Maggie, Conan, some other titles like that. So there isn't a lot that you can buy, but I would definitely check it out if that's something you'd be into. And then another one that I also bought from that site is The Butler is King by Nana Shiba. This is just a one-shot, very silly, cute, fun read. It is basically the story about a girl who is training to become a patissier or a pastry chef, and she applies to work at a maid cafe, thinking that, she can just work around girls because she's afraid of boys, and it turns out that the Butler Cafe upstairs is the one who really was looking for a bakery or a pastry chef, and so she ends up working for all these really cute boys, and just has a really hard time with it, and then of course the top butler is the one that's interested in her. It's, a total crazy fantasy, and so unrealistic, but really, really fun to read. So I had fun. I have read all of these since getting them. I think I got them like 2 days before Christmas, and I read them all right away. Even though my sister was like, no, you have to save them for your Read Manga 19 challenge because it's a new publisher and you want to read one next year. I have no problems. I'll read these all again this year. I have no problems with that, so I will definitely do that. The next title is actually an independent title. It just came out this year and I'm very excited about it. And again, from a new publisher. This one's from Comics India, and it is Verite. I'm assuming that's what it is. So on the front here we've got a bunch of Indian authors. On the back it's Berite, and it's a bunch of Japanese Gekiga authors. And in the middle of this book is an essay by Ryan Holmberg, who I appreciate his work. It is actually an essay about the history, the development of speed lines, and the use in Gekiga, which is really interesting, as well as Osamu Tezuka's response to Gekiga and what he sort of does in that work. I haven't finished reading the essay, so I don't really know what it ends up saying, but it's been really fascinating so far. I have read a little bit of this so far. I'm enjoying it immensely. I am so excited to have collected this. If you are into alternative comics, or if you want to see especially that perspective between Japan and India, because there's a close relationship and it's not something that we really see here in North America. I definitely have never seen this perspective in manga before. I would definitely recommend checking this out. I will leave a link down in the description below where you can pick this up, because I am very excited about this title. I also picked up a couple of alternative comics from Retrofit. I have a feeling I was on that website because something was released. I can't remember exactly what it was because I've got quite a few little things pre-ordered, and I think I was putting a pre-order in, and decided to also pick up some titles that I had looked at previously. And so one of them is Fashion Forecasts. This is by Yumi Sakugawa. It does look a little bit like a combination of fashion and comic, and it looks just really interesting and fun, and I'm really looking forward to reading through this, getting a little bit more into alternative comics, and I think this is just sort of it looks like a really fun entrance into that. I do like looking at fashion, and I have a feeling that this is just going to give me some good thoughts about it, really kind of expand my mind a little bit about some of my ideas, so I'm looking forward to reading this. And I picked this one up, and actually it was on a recommendation. I can't remember exactly who told me to buy it, but they had recommended that I buy something from Retrofit, I think over a year ago, and said pick this up at the same time, and I had mistaken picking this up, so I had thought I had put it in the cart and I hadn't, and I didn't want to go back, so it was still available, so I picked it up now. This is Nothing Whatsoever, All Out in the Open by Akino Kondo, and another sort of alternative comic, very short little book. And the artwork looks like this, but you can see it's just sort of an issue size, feels a little bit more homemade, but the art looks really cute, and I'm really looking forward to reading this. It's nice to have some new kind of different comic perspectives in the collection. And then the next two are actually titles for my 1001 Comics You Must Read Before You Die project. So I am collecting all of the manga that I can from that. So the first one here is Doing Time by Kazuichi Hanawa. This is actually a story about, I believe the author actually his experience in prison. I have flipped through it a little bit, and you can tell immediately that this is going to be a rough read. Beautifully illustrated. I think you could read that one. Beautifully illustrated, as you can see, and I really am looking forward to it, but at the same time these kinds of works are really hard. They're hard on me to read, so I will wait until I draw this out of the jar before I do. This is published by Fanfare Ponentmon, who have some really nice titles, and I hope that they publish more in English sometime. And then the other one that I picked up is Even a Monkey Can Draw Manga. This is by Koji Aihara and Kentaro Takekuma. This is a fairly long series, I believe, but it was actually dropped after Volume 1, published by Pulp. It is an adult title. I'm not sure there's many pages I could show you. Oh, I think I can do this one. There aren't too many pages I can show you, so hopefully that one was okay. But it is one of the titles, again, in that book that I am trying to collect, and it does look really interesting. There's a lot of text in it, which is kind of a surprise. I don't really know too much about it. I know that it's obviously a comedy just from flipping through it, and obviously adult from flipping through it, but it does look like it's going to be really hilarious and a lot of fun to read, and it was in surprisingly good condition. I got it for a really decent price, so I was happy to pick this up. Yeah, so I am going to be collecting some more out-of-print unique titles over the year, and I'm really looking forward to it because I think there's going to be some really cool gems in the mix here. Yeah, I actually kind of want to read it right now, but I'm going to wait until I put it in the jar and pick it out later. So that I've added. And then the last book that I actually got was from a Kickstarter, and I haven't quite opened it yet, but I am going to open it here. And that is, let's see, this side. And that is this one here. You can see it's quite large. This is the Fairytales of Oscar Wilde. It's illustrated by Yuko Shimizu, who is, generally she illustrates like book jackets. I noticed her for the first time when she had illustrated, I think, the Walrus magazine, and I was just like, wow, this illustration is so incredibly beautiful. And since then I've just been kind of following her around and you know, drooling over her art and wondering whether or not I should buy some of her art for, you know, the wall or whatever. So this Kickstarter came up, and there were 3 artists. I can't remember who they were, but I definitely wanted to pick this up. Oscar Wilde is also sort of an interesting read, so I thought that this would be really beautiful. So I got this one with the hardcover box, which contains the book, which is incredibly beautiful. Oh, incredibly beautiful in the back too. So she just has this really beautiful illustration style that kind of looks like traditional, almost block printing, but she uses, she does it all digitally, and I think that it's just really effective. Illustration style and her use of color is just really beautiful, and when I saw that she was doing this Kickstarter, I definitely wanted to jump in. And this is how a Kickstarter really should be run. There was really good communication, the quality of the work is there, and it really was, like, it was barely, you know, it wasn't 100% on schedule, but they kept you informed the entire time, let you know when things were happening and when you could expect things to happen. So I thought that this worked really well, and so, you know, despite the fact that I had a poor experience with the Kimagure Orange Road Kickstarter, this one actually was a good experience. Anyway, that's it for today. I ended up getting quite a lot of good stuff, good related stuff. Not so much manga, but there certainly was some manga in there as well. I had a good Christmas, I had a good December, and I'm expecting to have a good January. There's still quite a lot of titles that I'd ordered in 2018 that are still on their way, so hopefully you will be seeing those sometime soon. Or I will be seeing them sometime soon as well, because I'd love to read them. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.